Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to be talking about Mystic Miner. We have a prototype version, MM3. This is the version right before the MM4's release. A couple of updated features on Mystic Miner, going over that, and as well as placement of GPUs, evga XC3 and Gigabyte 3 fans. So if you think that's interesting, hit like, subscribe with the bell, go to cryptollc.org. If you are looking to set up a GPU or ASIC mining farm, we help our clients set them up and manage it for them. Or if you're looking to buy yourself some GPUs or ASICs, the prices are down right now, great time to buy. And before we get started, Bitcoin saves your wealth and Jesus Christ saves your soul. All right, so we got our Mystic Miner here. So giving you like a general overview of Mystic Miner, giving you some nice shots and just giving you that feel for Mystic Miner. So I'm gonna get rid of that SSD. We did not get an SSD like special slot that comes like on Octominer. On Mystic Miner, you don't get that slot, so you just have to kind of place it there. It's prototype, hopefully that'll be improved in the future. But basically you get your main motherboard here. We have 8 gig RAM, standard processor, i3 or G or series or whatever it is, doesn't really matter. As long as it does a good job managing these 12 GPUs, which it does, so totally fine with that. We have 12 slots, so we got 2 on the motherboard here, 10 on this additional board here that is connected with this connection right over here. So this is a data connection. So everything's working great. We already tested it out. It works great. It's got that standard power supply plugs that come into or plug into this additional board here. You can see them right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got all 10 of them. And then you got 2 more over here that also power the risers, or in this case, they're not risers, they're the PCI Express slots, but usually they take about 75 watts each. So you got these coming in, powering that, as well as powering the processor, the RAM, the motherboard, everything else. So you get the standard setup here, a little bit different than Octominer, but very, very similar. There you go. Giving you guys that overview. Then in terms of power supply, it comes at 3300 watts, which is enough to power all 12 3080s. But if you were to plug in 3090s or 3080 Ti's, you would require more than that. You require like 36, 38, 4000, so on. We would just most likely get a 4000 watt or even more, 4200. Because in the future, if Ethereum goes away and you mine some other coin, that other coin might use core and memory. So you might jump up from 240 on the 3080s, and you might go up to maybe extra 20 watts, extra 30, 40 watts on each GPU, and you have 12 of them. So you got to make sure that you don't get a low-end power supply, get a little bit higher, make sure you can handle those additional, or the additional load if ever the algorithm changes. Then we can talk about the spacing between the GPUs. You can see here, if I line up these GPUs on their dots, right, like that, so just imagine screwing them just about there. You can see the space between the GPUs. Now these are 2 different GPUs, XC3 Ultra and Gigabyte 3 fan. If there was a Gigabyte 3 fan next to it, the space would be like a 1/4 inch, so it'd be almost non-existent. But since it's these 2 GPUs, then you do have probably like 1/2 inch spacing. If you look right between those cards right there, you have like 1/2 inch spacing there. So that gives it, in our opinion, a good enough spacing if you were to do it like this. Now, if you were gonna go just Gigabyte 3 fan, the spacing would be very, very small. But again, we have to see what the results are, because this is just like kind of theoretical. When we talk about the spacing, if you need more space than that or not, it's more like theoretical. The only way we know is if we actually just run all Gigabyte 3 fans on the whole thing and also run XC3 Ultras on the whole thing and see what happens. So we're going to be doing that in the next couple of videos, just trying out the Gigabyte 3 fan. Now in terms of power supply, the power supply for the GPUs comes standard 8-pin. So each one gets 8 pin. If you're going to be plugging in for the Win 3s on the Mystic Miner, you know for the Win 3s you have 3 plugs. You don't have 2, you have 1, 2, 3 plugs. So the third plug you don't have a cord for. You need to have an adapter. So if you got one of these, you're gonna have to have another adapter coming off the end. You have to buy like adapters for it. So you have 1, 2, and then 3. So it'd be a whole big mess if you were to get for the Win 3s. And that would just, yeah, that would be a mess. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing your GPUs, to make sure you only get those ones that are 2 slots, not 3, unless of course you want to just get adapters and you don't care if it's a mess inside. So depends which way you want to go. Now let's talk about the fans. So Mystic Miner comes with 6 fans. That's 1 more than Octominer. Octominer comes with 5 fans. So these are 6 fans, and they blow air between the GPUs. So you can imagine it blowing air right through there, coming along the back plate of the GPU, also the front of the fans. Both of these GPUs have 3 fans each, so blowing in the front, and then blowing out the back. So let me show you guys the back. So now you can see the back here. You can imagine the air coming through, right, and then blowing out the back. It's all fine, and we already tested how it works. It works fine, except this top slot right here. You can see this top metal piece they have here, and I think it's going to be blocking air. You can imagine that. You see the fans here? They're blowing at the top of the GPU. So especially these EVGA XE3s, they're even shorter. You can see how much shorter they are than the Gigabyte 3 fan. Right there, you see that? My finger? It's like a little more than the thickness of my finger. It's just like maybe like half an inch, well, like 3/4 of an inch taller. And that means that if you get these cards, you'll have a lot of airflow coming on the top, right? Blowing off the top of the card, which is good if it could blow out. But it's not going to be blowing out because that whole entire structure of this Mystic Miner, it's not going to be blowing out the top. So we're going to see if this has an impact, a negative impact or not. Again, we're comparing everything to Octominer. So we're going to see if that has a negative impact. We're testing everything out, same scenarios, same GPUs, same locations, same temperatures, outside temperatures, what we're going to be basing everything off of. So we're going to see if that has that negative impact or not. But looking at it, technically, it probably will. But then again, Mystic Miner has 1 more fan than Octominer, 6 versus 5. Show you guys some shots over here. So there's those fans. Again, this is a prototype. You can see like this is how it arrived. The screws are just a little not big enough heads on the screws. So that's coming off, that's coming off. Basically each one has the same problem. You can see it right there. Each one has the same problem. Now in terms of the additional features that are coming with the MM4 is the screen is going to be touchscreen. So they're adding that. And then as well as the fan control is going to be hiveos fan control. So that's going to be integrated. Right now it's manual. So let me switch around to this side. Right now it's manual and it's running off of this little block here. You see all the fans plugging into it. And you got this knob. See that knob right there? So that knob controls your fan speed manually. And with MM4 version of this Mystic Miner, you should be able to set the target temperature with the fan speed. So if you set the target temperature at 95, then the fan speeds will spin up. Also the GPUs are also based on that. Everything will be in sync. They'll run as fast as needed to keep it at 95. Your GPUs will also run, the fans on them will also run as fast as needed to keep it at 95. That's what Octominer has right now, and it works great. Now let's talk about these 2 wires. It's very, very interesting how these 2 wires are just simply, I mean, pretty weird looking. I would assume that they should be coming off to the side and being, screwed to this frame, but they're just kind of just hanging out. Doesn't look good at all. Looks pretty ugly. But you can see the HDMI cable here coming off of that screen, as well as the USB cable that plugs into the motherboard. So you can see the USB cable is right here, plugging into that screen, getting data from it, and then the HDMI plugging into the monitor, to the screen as well. Let me give you some close-up shots of that. So that does not look good at all, and these wires are not long enough. Like, this one's like pulling on that USB, right? Pulling on that monitor, the little screen. So then you need to make them longer, and then you need to make them be next to the frame, get them out of the way. Don't let them be so ugly. Next thing is the PSU. This one also can come with a second PSU. So if you wanted to run like 12 3090s, you can. You put another PSU here. It's made for it right there. Blows out the back over here. So you put it sideways like this, and then it sits on this metal piece right here, and then it'll just blow out air through here. So that works out. We haven't tested it, but that's what it's designed for. And what you can do with that is you can run then a bunch of 3090s. So this thing can take 12 3090s, right? You just got to have more power. The only problem with that is when you run 12 3090s, it's going to be going over the 20 amp load on the copper. So you're going to be running, let's say you have 240 volts, and then at 20, that's going to be over the load. So basically, it's going to be very, very close or over the load. And unless you put like a 30 amp copper on the outlet, that'll work. But if you're at 20 amp copper on the outlet, then you're just going to be overheating that copper and probably trip the breaker, the 20 amp breaker. So even if you could, you can't really do that with these two PSUs, unless of course you plug the PSUs into separate outlets. So you have 120, two outlets, both at 20 amps, and you have 230, 240 volts. Then you can plug in, let's say, this PSU into one outlet, this PSU into the second outlet. Then that will work. Otherwise, it's not going to. So keep that in mind, that even if you could, there's really no point. The other thing you could do is you could, let's say, run smaller size PSUs. What I mean is, like, instead of just running one at 36 or 3300, like this guy over here, you can have two and then just run, say, 2000, right, and then 2000, right? So you have a total of 4. And that way you're just, you're not using all 2000, right? You're not using all of it. You're maybe just loading it the same way, 3300 watts, 3600 watts, whatever it is. But now that you have two PSUs, now you're going to have less of a load on those PSUs. So they'll run more efficiently, potentially, depending on the PSU. And then you can just plug both of those into the same exact outlet. Even though you're not going to be using all 4,000, but that's one way you could do it. Maybe the price is cheaper. The price could be cheaper for just getting two PSUs at 2,000 each, or two PSUs at like 1,800 each, rather than getting just one at 36. So those are all various scenarios. Again, it's something possible that you could do. Now, let me give you guys some shots here. This is how it arrived, a little dent in here. This is just one prototype unit we ordered. So it's not 100% finished, but it's great to see the new features. Also talking with Mystic Miner about any potential things that we'd want to change or add or whatever. So it's great to have a setup like this. Let them know, especially about this back right here. That's for sure. Like I will let Mystic Miner know that, why don't you just add smaller pieces of metal, like thinner, like maybe 1/2 inch, like round, so it'll be nice and stable and hold that up, right? And then have that like between every single card, and then get rid of that whole top thick piece right there, right? Just get rid of it, get rid of that whole top thick piece, allow more air to escape on top of the GPUs, get rid of that hot air. Now for everyone out there that's thinking like, hey, my cards never have heating problems, I don't have any problems like that. Well, that's probably because you're not running 3000 series cards. For 3000 series cards, the VRAM overheats very, very fast unless you have good cooling. So you got to make sure you have good cooling and you're in a cool environment. You know, mining somewhere out in Arizona in some hot weather. So you have to have cool weather, as well as have good airflow, intake and exhaust, all that stuff, and replace your thermal pads if need be. But if you're running like RX 480s, RX 580s, 1080s, 2080s, things like that, you're not running the newest GDR6X memory, and so you're not getting that 99 mega hash is what we're getting on these 3080s. You're not getting that 99 mega hashes, and for that reason, you're not going to be overheating. Like if we put 3070s in here, right? Even though those are 3000 series, 3070s, they don't even have a memory temperature reading for hiveos. Hiveos will just show no memory temperature, just show core. That's because those cards are, they probably don't even require you to know the memory temperature. It's like, it'll basically never overheat, like ever overheat, because they just run so cool. As long as you have adequate, good enough cooling, it's fine. 3070s, they'll mine right away, no problems at all. It's when you go to 3080s and 3090s is when you start getting to cooling issues with the VRAM. So you got to make sure you're running something solid, either running in an open air environment, having good intake and exhaust, or running something like this, Mystic Miner and Octominer, to get rid of that hot air. All right, so anyone out there that was thinking like, hey, I'm not doing any of this stuff and I don't have any problems with my VRAM, it's probably because you're running like a 1080 or 1070, 1060. Maybe you're running a 3060 or 3070. You won't have any of those issues. So yeah, here's the overview. And then lastly is the lid. So I put this lid on. Comes like that. Comes with 4 nuts or 4 screws. 1, 2, right? 2, 3, 4. 4 screws. We noticed that these middle sections, once you turn on the miner and you turn on full blast on the fan speed, the middle section does not tighten down all the way. So hopefully on the new design, they're going to add 2 more screws, right, for the middle section, because once it's fully loaded, it basically pushes the lid off of itself, trying to get the lid off of itself from all the pressure built inside of it. And then of course, getting rid of this, that might also improve that whole pressure problem. But yeah, so here's a general overview. We're going to be researching and taking a look at comparisons of Octominer to see if it's better than Octominer. Again, we're going to be testing Gigabyte 3 fan, EVGA Ultra, also 3080 Ti's and things like that. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit like on this video, because we're going to be posting more videos with the results. You don't want to miss those ones. That's going to be it for this one. Hope you guys like it, and until next time, bye.